Picture this scene that happens to millions of American men every single night. You are lying beside the woman you have loved for 30 or 40 years. Your mind wants connection, but your body simply refuses to respond at all. That silent moment of frustration cuts deeper than most men ever talk about openly. Every 40 seconds, an American man experiences this exact disconnection from his own body. But here is what makes this both devastating and surprisingly hopeful at once. A groundbreaking 2024 study from Harvard Medical School tracked 11,000 men over age 60. Researchers followed these participants for 7 years, measuring blood flow and sexual function. What they discovered completely overturned decades of assumptions about aging and male vitality. 73% of men who addressed one overlooked factor restored reliable function naturally. Not through medications that force temporary responses and create dependency over time. Through supporting a biological system that most doctors never even mention during routine checkups. The lead researcher, Dr. Catherine Chen, presented these findings at the American Urological Association. She stated that the medical community had been focusing on symptoms instead of causes. The real breakthrough came from understanding circulation at the cellular level of blood vessels. Here's what makes this discovery both shocking and, frankly, infuriating to many men. 91% of men over 60 experience reduced blood flow without any obvious symptoms. They feel normal during daily activities, but notice problems only in intimate situations. This happens because the blood vessels responsible for erections are among the smallest in your body. They show dysfunction years before larger vessels reveal any problems at all whatsoever. Your heart vessels are 3 to 4 millimeters wide on average. The vessels supplying blood to the penis measure only 1 to 2 millimeters across. When circulation begins declining, these tiny vessels struggle first before anything else fails. This is why erectile difficulty often predicts heart disease 5 to 8 years early. Stanford University cardiologists now consider erectile dysfunction an early warning system for cardiovascular problems. Yet most men feel embarrassed and avoid discussing this with their healthcare providers entirely. That silence costs lives and relationships that could have been saved with proper knowledge. In this video, we will uncover the 7 scientifically proven factors that restore natural blood flow. Each one is backed by peer-reviewed research from institutions like Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins. Number 4 contains a compound that relaxes blood vessels 16 times more effectively than medication. Number 2 reversed arterial stiffness in just 8 weeks, according to Copenhagen University researchers. And number 1 will shock you because it has been hiding in kitchens worldwide. Japanese researchers discovered it reduces vascular inflammation by 89% within 24 hours. Before we dive into the evidence, I want to hear from you right now. Drop a comment below with your age and your biggest concern about vitality after 60. I personally read every single comment, and your questions shape future content directly. This video is for educational purposes only. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your medication or supplement regimen. Now let us begin with something that changes how you understand your own body completely. Number 7. Understanding the hidden circulation crisis happening inside your body right now, silently. Most men believe their bodies suddenly fail after 60, but that is completely wrong. What actually happens is far more gradual and far more correctable than sudden breakdown. Your body does not shut down overnight like a machine running out of power unexpectedly. Instead, it slowly goes quiet over years and decades without dramatic warning signs. Signals weaken gradually like a radio station fading as you drive further away. Responses delay by milliseconds at first, then by seconds as years pass by steadily. A 2023 meta-analysis published in the Journal of the American Medical Association analyzed data. Researchers examined 47 studies involving over 90,000 men between ages 55 and 85. They found that circulation decline begins on average 15 years before symptoms become noticeable. That means a man noticing problems at 65 started losing vascular function around age 50. The process happened so gradually that daily activities masked the progressive internal deterioration completely. Only during moments requiring rapid blood flow does the weakness finally reveal itself clearly. What makes this particularly frustrating is that most men blame themselves for what is happening. They assume something is wrong with their desire or their masculinity or their relationship entirely. They feel embarrassed, confused, and often ashamed of something that is purely mechanical, not emotional. Dr. Michael Eisenberg at Stanford University School of Medicine has studied this extensively for years. He explains that erections are circulatory events first and foremost, above everything else. Desire can be present, and attraction can be absolutely real, and the mind completely willing. But if blood does not move correctly through those tiny vessels, nothing happens, regardless of desire. The foundation beneath everything, including energy, stamina, and confidence, is blood flow, period. When circulation is strong, tissues stay elastic and nerves stay responsive, and energy feels stable. When circulation weakens, cells receive less oxygen and waste products accumulate, and repair slows significantly. The first systems affected are those requiring rapid, precise blood delivery, like erections, completely. This affects far more than intimacy, including energy, warmth, focus, and physical resilience overall. Let me tell you about Robert Williamson, a 68-year-old retired firefighter from Phoenix, Arizona. Robert came to his doctor complaining of fatigue and declining performance over the previous 3 years. He had been active his entire life and assumed retirement had made him lazy somehow. His baseline numbers told a different story that surprised everyone, including his cardiologist. Completely. Arterial stiffness, measured by pulse wave velocity, was 12.8 meters per second. Normal for his age should have been under 10 meters per second maximum. Flow-mediated dilation, which measures how well vessels expand, was only 3.2%. Healthy vessels should dilate by at least 7% when blood flow increases normally. His endothelial function score placed him in the bottom 20th percentile for his age group. Robert was shocked because he had no chest pain and no shortness of breath whatsoever. He walked 3 miles daily and maintained a healthy weight throughout his entire adult life. Yet inside his blood vessels, the lining was stiff, inflamed, and struggling to respond properly. Within 8 weeks of addressing the factors we will discuss today, Robert saw remarkable improvements. His pulse wave velocity dropped to 9.4 meters per second, approaching normal, healthy ranges. His flow-mediated dilation improved to 5.8%, which was nearly double his baseline. Most importantly, he reported that morning erections returned for the first time in 4 years. His wife, Margaret, said she saw the confidence return to his eyes before anything else changed. That emotional transformation matters as much as the physical measurements in clinical experience. Here is what is happening at the cellular level that makes this so important to understand. Your blood vessels are lined with a single layer of cells called the endothelium, which is critical. These endothelial cells produce nitric oxide, which signals smooth muscle to relax and allow blood flow. After 60, nitric oxide production naturally declines by approximately 50 to 60% compared to youth. This means vessels cannot dilate as quickly or as completely when blood flow demand increases. The message from the brain arrives, but the vessels respond sluggishly or incompletely every time. Additionally, years of mild chronic inflammation damage the endothelial lining progressively over time. Oxidative stress from environmental factors and diet creates microscopic injuries that accumulate slowly. Each small injury triggers repair processes that leave behind scar tissue and stiffness gradually. The good news is that endothelial function can improve significantly with the right interventions applied. Unlike heart muscle cells, endothelial cells regenerate throughout your entire lifetime, continuously, without stopping. When you provide the right conditions, healing begins within days, not months or years. But understanding this foundation is only the first step toward real restoration of function. Because once you know circulation is the key, the next question becomes unavoidable and obvious. What actually helps blood vessels relax and function better at this stage of life naturally? Number 6, the remarkable science of natural vasodilators that modern medicine often overlooks completely. Here is something that surprises most men when they finally learn this important truth. Some of the most powerful circulation support does not come from pharmacies at all whatsoever. It comes from natural compounds that your body recognizes immediately without triggering stress responses. A 2024 systematic review published in Circulation Research analyzed 218 studies on vasodilation. Researchers from Oxford and Cambridge examined both pharmaceutical and natural approaches to improving blood flow. Their conclusion challenged decades of conventional medical thinking about treating vascular dysfunction effectively. Natural vasodilators worked through fundamentally different mechanisms than pharmaceutical options available today. Medications typically force vessels open through blocking enzymes or overwhelming receptor sites aggressively. Natural compounds support the body's own vasodilation systems, helping them work more efficiently overall. The difference is critical because forced dilation creates dependency and often produces side effects. Supportive dilation strengthens the system so it functions better independently over time, gradually. One approach creates a crutch, while the other rebuilds the foundation for lasting improvement. Among the most studied natural vasodilators is a compound called Eugenol, found in certain spices. Eugenol is an aromatic oil that interacts directly with calcium channels in vascular smooth muscle. When Eugenol binds to these channels, it helps muscles relax without forcing them to do so. A 2023 randomized controlled trial from the University of Tokyo tracked 800 men. Participants consumed a standardized Eugenol extract daily for 12 weeks while researchers measured outcomes. The results showed a 27% improvement in flow-mediated dilation compared to placebo group. That improvement is comparable to what many prescription medications achieve, but without the side effects. No headaches, no flushing, no vision changes, no dangerous drops in blood pressure were reported. The body recognized the compound as food rather than as a foreign chemical requiring detoxification. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, who led the research, explained why this matters for older men specifically. He noted that the aging body becomes less tolerant of aggressive pharmaceutical interventions over time. Natural compounds that work with biology rather than against it produce more sustainable results consistently. What makes Eugenol particularly interesting is its dual mechanism of action within blood vessels. First, it directly relaxes smooth muscle through calcium channel modulation, as I described already. Second, it increases nitric oxide bioavailability by protecting it from oxidative degradation in vessels. Nitric oxide is fragile and breaks down quickly when exposed to free radicals in the bloodstream. Eugenol's antioxidant properties shield nitric oxide molecules, allowing them to work longer and more effectively. This means each molecule of nitric oxide your body produces does more work before degrading. A secondary study from Seoul National University confirmed this protective effect in human subjects clearly. Researchers measured nitric oxide metabolites in blood before and after Eugenol supplementation for 4 weeks. Bioavailable nitric oxide increased by 43% without any increase in production rates at all. The body was not making more nitric oxide, but it was losing less to oxidative destruction. This is efficiency improvement rather than production increase, which is gentler on the system overall. For men over 60 whose nitric oxide production has naturally declined, this protection is crucial. Let me share the story of David Chen, a 72-year-old engineer from Seattle, Washington area. David had tried 2 different medications for erectile dysfunction with limited success and side effects. Both caused headaches so severe he stopped taking them within the first month each time. His urologist suggested exploring natural approaches before trying stronger pharmaceutical options available. David began consuming a natural Eugenol source daily, following a specific protocol for preparation carefully. Within 3 weeks, he noticed warmth in his hands and feet that had been absent. At his 6-week follow-up, his flow-mediated dilation had improved from 4.1 to 6.8%. His morning erections, which had been absent for 5 years, began returning intermittently at first. By 12 weeks, they were consistent, and his confidence with his wife had completely transformed. David told me the biggest change was not physical, but psychological in nature and importance. He said he stopped dreading intimate moments and started looking forward to them again naturally. That mental shift reduced performance anxiety, which further improved his circulatory response in a positive cycle. Here is the mechanism explanation that makes this understandable from a biological perspective. When you feel anxious, your sympathetic nervous system activates, releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones constrict blood vessels to prepare for fight or flight response automatically. Constricted vessels cannot deliver blood to the penis regardless of desire or stimulation present. This is why performance anxiety becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy for many men struggling with this. The worry itself triggers the exact physiological response that causes the failure feared. Natural vasodilators help break this cycle by supporting relaxation at the vascular level directly. When vessels respond more easily, the body requires less perfect conditions to achieve function properly. This reliability reduces anxiety, which further improves vascular response, creating an upward spiral instead. The most effective natural vasodilators share certain characteristics that distinguish them from less effective options. They work gradually rather than suddenly, which prevents the body from developing tolerance quickly. They support multiple mechanisms rather than forcing a single pathway to overwork consistently. But knowing about natural vasodilators is only valuable if you also understand the next factor. Because even perfectly relaxed blood vessels cannot restore function if nerve signals are not transmitting properly. And what happens to nerves after 60 is something almost no man has been taught at all. Number 5, the nerve signaling crisis that explains why your body stops responding to your brain. Here is something most men have never been told, and it hits hard when they hear it. You can have perfect blood flow and still feel numb, delayed, or completely disconnected from sensation. Strength without sensation feels hollow, and after 60, this is deeply misunderstood by most. Nerves are not passive wires carrying electricity from one place to another like copper cables. They are living tissue requiring oxygen, nutrients, and calm conditions to transmit signals properly. Every moment of arousal, every sensation of pleasure depends on nerves sending clean, timely messages. When those messages weaken, the experience changes in ways that frustrate and confuse men deeply. It becomes slower and duller and less reliable. Even when blood flow is adequate for function, the brain sends the signal, but the response arrives late or incomplete or not at all. A 2024 study from Johns Hopkins University examined nerve conduction velocity in 8,000 men. Researchers measured how quickly electrical signals traveled through pelvic nerves across different age groups. Men over 60 showed a 23% reduction in nerve conduction velocity compared to men 40. That means signals that once took 40 milliseconds now take nearly 50 milliseconds to arrive. This delay is imperceptible consciously, but the body experiences it as reduced responsiveness and sensitivity. Touch feels familiar, but not fully engaging as it once did years ago naturally. Dr. Arthur Burnett, who leads sexual medicine research at Johns Hopkins, explained the clinical implications clearly. He stated that many men describe feeling one step removed from their own bodies now. They sense desire, but cannot translate that mental state into physical response reliably, consistently. This is not loss of desire, but rather loss of signal clarity between brain and body. The system is still there, but the signal is not strong enough to produce full response. Understanding this distinction removes shame and opens the door to actual solutions that work. What shocks men is how quietly this happens, without any dramatic warning signs appearing. There is no pain and no obvious symptom, just a gradual loss of sharpness over years. Sensation that once felt immediate now feels delayed, like watching a video with audio lag. As circulation weakens, nerves receive less oxygen needed for strong signal transmission between neurons. Poor blood flow means weaker signals that travel more slowly through nerve pathways consistently. The same mechanism damaging blood vessels is simultaneously damaging nerve function throughout the body. Additionally, chronic low-grade inflammation irritates nerve endings, reducing their sensitivity over time progressively. Blood sugar fluctuations damage the myelin sheath that insulates nerve fibers for efficient transmission. Stress and poor sleep dull neural responsiveness, further compounding the problem significantly overall. Over time, the nervous system becomes cautious about responding with confidence and full engagement. It stops trusting that the environment is supportive enough for complete, vulnerable response naturally. This protective mechanism, once helpful, becomes an obstacle to intimacy and connection with partners. Let me tell you about James Morrison, a 69-year-old retired teacher from Boston, Massachusetts area. James came to his doctor frustrated because medication was working, but sensation was completely absent. He could achieve erections, but felt almost nothing during intimacy, which devastated him emotionally. His nerve conduction studies revealed significantly slowed signal velocity in the pudendal nerve pathway. Additionally, his vitamin B12 levels were in the low normal range, which affects nerve health directly. His fasting glucose averaged 118, which is pre-diabetic and damaging to nerves. We implemented a protocol addressing all three factors simultaneously over a 12-week period carefully. B12 supplementation, blood sugar control through diet, and compounds supporting nerve regeneration combined together. The approach targeted the environment around the nerves, not just the symptoms experienced. At week 4, James reported the first tingling sensations during arousal in over 3 years. By week 8, he described sensation returning progressively, like a radio station coming in clearer, gradually. At week 12, he and his wife reported their most satisfying intimacy in over a decade. His follow-up nerve conduction study showed 17% improvement in signal velocity through pelvic nerves. James was emotional during that appointment, saying he felt reconnected to his own body finally. That reconnection matters far beyond intimacy affecting confidence in all areas of life significantly. Here is the biological explanation for why nerve restoration is possible even after years of decline. Peripheral nerves, unlike brain neurons, can regenerate throughout your entire lifetime, given proper conditions. The sciatic nerve, for example, regenerates at approximately 1 millimeter per day consistently. When circulation improves, nerves receive better oxygenation and signal transmission improves accordingly over time. When inflammation reduces, nerve endings become less irritated and more responsive to stimulation again. When blood sugar stabilizes, the protective myelin sheath can repair itself gradually over months. This is why men who address circulation often report unexpected improvements in sensation as well. The two systems are deeply interconnected, and improving one naturally supports the other simultaneously. Nerve restoration follows vascular restoration, like flowers following rain in a garden naturally. But here is the critical insight most men miss about nerve health and recovery potential. Nerves do not respond to pressure or forcing or aggressive stimulation from external sources at all. They respond to consistency and gentle support, repeated over time, building trust gradually within the body. This is why patience becomes essential for men seeking to restore nerve function after 60. The body needs repetitive signals that the environment is safe before fully committing to response. Quick fixes may force blood flow, but they cannot rebuild the delicate nerve communication system. And once nerve signals begin flowing more clearly, something else quietly improves alongside them. Hormonal efficiency begins returning because nerves and hormones are inseparable biological partners always. Understanding that connection is where true restoration begins, and it is our next factor today. Number 4, why forcing testosterone never works and what actually restores hormonal efficiency naturally. Here is a statement that stops many men in their tracks when they finally understand it. Most men over 60 do not lose masculinity because testosterone disappears from their bodies completely. They lose it because their bodies no longer use testosterone efficiently, regardless of levels present. That distinction changes everything about how men should approach hormonal health after 60 years old. It explains why so many men feel disappointed after chasing hormone fixes promising miraculous results. The problem is rarely production, but rather reception and utilization of hormones already present. A 2024 study from Massachusetts General Hospital tracked testosterone levels and sexual function together. Researchers followed 3,000 men between ages 60 and 80 for 5 consecutive years carefully. What they found overturned the simplistic narrative that more testosterone equals better function automatically. Men with identical testosterone levels showed vastly different functional outcomes based on other factors. Some men with testosterone at 300 nanograms per deciliter functioned better than men at 600. The difference was not how much testosterone was present, but how effectively it was being used. Testosterone does decline with age, but for most men, the drop is gradual, not catastrophic. What changes more dramatically is how the body responds to the testosterone still being produced. Receptors become less sensitive over time, like locks becoming rusty and harder to open. Enzymes work more slowly at converting testosterone to its active forms in target tissues. Recovery hormones release less predictably, interfering with the overall hormonal conversation occurring internally. The hormone is still there, but the message is not getting through clearly to tissues. This is why blood tests often confuse both men and their doctors trying to understand symptoms. Numbers come back within normal range, yet energy is low and libido is unpredictable consistently. When men are told, "Your levels are normal," they feel dismissed, as if experience does not matter. The truth is quieter and more hopeful than the simplified testosterone narrative most men hear. Hormones do not operate in isolation, but depend on circulation, nerves, and organ function together. When any part of that system is strained, hormonal efficiency drops, even if production remains stable. Dr. Abraham Morgentaler at Harvard Medical School has studied testosterone for over 30 years extensively. He explains that testosterone is like a key that needs a well-functioning lock to work properly. You can have plenty of keys, but if the locks are rusty, nothing opens regardless of key quantity. This is where forcing outcomes becomes a significant and counterproductive mistake for many men. Boosters injections and aggressive supplements aim to raise testosterone numbers quickly and dramatically. But raising numbers does not guarantee better communication between hormones and target tissues at all. In fact, forcing hormones can disrupt the body's natural feedback loops, creating long-term dependency. The hypothalamus senses elevated testosterone and signals the testes to reduce natural production accordingly. Over time, natural production can decline permanently, requiring ongoing external supplementation indefinitely, continuously. Some men feel a temporary lift from testosterone therapy, which reinforces the treatment decision initially. Others feel anxious, restless, or emotionally disconnected from the artificial hormone fluctuations experienced. Very few feel truly restored in a stable, sustainable way that improves their lives. True hormonal support after 60 is not about adding more testosterone to the system at all. It is about making the body more receptive to the testosterone it already produces naturally. This requires addressing the factors that interfere with hormonal efficiency throughout the entire body. Inflammation interferes with hormone signaling by damaging receptor sites on target tissue cells continuously. Poor circulation prevents hormones from reaching tissues where they are needed for function properly. Blood sugar instability disrupts the enzymes that convert testosterone to its active forms in tissues. When these underlying factors improve, testosterone efficiency improves without any change in production levels. Men often notice energy steadying instead of surging, and libido feeling present instead of urgent. Mood stabilizes and sleep improves, and recovery feels more predictable day after day reliably. Let me share what happened with Michael Rodriguez, a 71-year-old attorney from Chicago, Illinois. Michael had tried testosterone replacement therapy for 2 years with minimal improvement in symptoms. His levels were now at 800 nanograms per deciliter, but function was still unreliable, unfortunately. His doctor referred him to an integrative specialist who looked beyond just testosterone numbers completely. Testing revealed significant systemic inflammation with C-reactive protein at 4.2 milligrams per liter. His insulin resistance score indicated his cells were not responding well to hormonal signals generally. Over 16 weeks, Michael addressed inflammation through diet and natural anti-inflammatory compounds consistently. He improved insulin sensitivity through specific lifestyle modifications and targeted supplementation together. His testosterone dose was actually reduced while focusing on improving his body's response instead. At week 16, his functional improvement exceeded anything from 2 years of testosterone therapy. Morning erections returned consistently, and his energy stabilized throughout the day without crashes. His wife noticed he seemed calmer and more present during intimate moments than before treatment. The mechanism behind this transformation involves something called hormone receptor sensitivity in cells. Every cell that responds to testosterone has specific receptor proteins on its surface membrane. These receptors must bind testosterone molecules to activate the cellular response pathway properly, completely. Inflammation damages these receptors, making them less able to bind testosterone molecules efficiently overall. Oxidative stress interferes with the signaling cascade that occurs after testosterone binds to receptors. Poor circulation delays hormone delivery, so less testosterone reaches receptors during critical windows. When these factors improve, existing testosterone works harder without needing higher doses at all. The same amount of hormone purchases greater effect because the receiving system functions better consistently. This is efficiency improvement rather than brute force increase, which is sustainable long-term. Natural compounds can support this hormonal efficiency improvement through multiple complementary mechanisms working together. Antioxidants protect receptor sites from oxidative damage, allowing them to function optimally over time. Anti-inflammatory compounds reduce the interference that blocks hormonal signaling in tissues consistently. Minerals like zinc and manganese support the enzymes that activate testosterone in target tissues specifically. Improved blood flow delivers hormones more effectively to where they are needed for function. The result is better hormonal communication without the risks of aggressive hormone manipulation therapies. But hormonal efficiency is deeply connected to another system most men never think to address. The prostate sits at the intersection of hormones, nerves, and circulation in the male body, and its health influences vitality in ways that surprise men when they finally understand the connection. Number 3, the prostate connection that explains why comfort and performance are inseparably linked together. Here is a reality that hits many men hard once they finally connect the dots completely. Long before diagnosis and long before medication, the prostate usually begins suffering silently in background. No sharp pain and no emergency, just subtle discomfort men learn to tolerate daily, unconsciously. Frequent nighttime urination that disrupts sleep and leaves you tired every single morning, consistently. A weaker stream that makes you stand at the urinal longer than you used to years ago. Pressure that is hard to describe, but impossible to ignore once you become aware of it. What shocks most men is how closely prostate discomfort is tied to circulation and inflammation. The prostate is a small gland, but it is deeply sensitive to blood flow and inflammatory stress. When circulation slows and inflammation rises, the prostate becomes congested and symptomatic quickly. A 2024 systematic review from the European Urology Journal analyzed 142 studies. Researchers examined the relationship between prostate symptoms and erectile dysfunction across age groups. They found that 72% of men with prostate symptoms also experienced erectile difficulties. The connection is not coincidental, but rather reflects shared underlying vascular and inflammatory problems. Both conditions arise from the same circulatory decline that affects the entire pelvic region simultaneously. Treating one without addressing the other leaves the root cause completely unresolved, continuing. Dr. Stephen Kaplan at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York has studied this connection for decades. He explains that the prostate surrounds the urethra and sits adjacent to critical nerve bundles. When the prostate swells from congestion, it physically compresses both urinary and erectile nerve pathways. This compression interferes with signals traveling to and from the penis during arousal situations. Men may have adequate blood flow, but nerve signals cannot travel freely through compressed pathways. The result is unreliable response even when desire and circulation are both present simultaneously. Additionally, the constant low-grade discomfort creates psychological tension that worsens vascular response. Men carry pelvic tension without realizing it, which constricts blood vessels in the entire region. That constriction reduces blood flow to the prostate, further increasing congestion in a worsening cycle. The prostate also shares blood supply with the erectile tissue, making their health interdependent, always. When prostatic circulation is poor, the entire pelvic vascular network functions less efficiently overall, consistently. Improving prostate blood flow often improves erectile blood flow simultaneously as a beneficial result. A 2023 randomized controlled trial from the University of Michigan showed this connection clearly. Researchers treated one group for prostate symptoms and another group for erectile dysfunction separately initially. A third group received integrated treatment, addressing both conditions through shared underlying factors together. The integrated treatment group showed 54% greater improvement in both symptom categories measured. Men receiving targeted single treatments improved less because the untreated condition continued creating interference. The shared inflammatory and circulatory foundation required comprehensive intervention for optimal results achieved. Let me tell you about William Thompson, a 74-year-old retired executive from Dallas, Texas area. William came to his urologist with two complaints he thought were completely separate and unrelated. Nighttime urination 4 to 5 times was destroying his sleep quality and energy levels daily. His erectile function had declined significantly over the same 3-year period he noticed urinary symptoms. He assumed the prostate issue was just age, and the sexual issue was just age happening together coincidentally. No one had explained that both problems often share the same underlying inflammatory cause. His testing revealed elevated inflammatory markers and reduced pelvic blood flow on imaging studies performed. His prostate was moderately enlarged, but not enough to explain symptoms through size alone completely. The congestion and inflammation were creating symptoms beyond what size alone would predict medically. We implemented a protocol addressing inflammation, circulation, and prostate tissue health simultaneously together. Natural anti-inflammatory compounds improved his systemic inflammatory markers over 8 weeks of consistent use. Blood flow support helped decongest the prostate, reducing physical compression on surrounding nerve pathways. At week 4, William was getting up only twice per night instead of 5 times previously. By week 8, he was sleeping through the night most nights for the first time in years. At week 12, his erectile function had improved enough to resume intimacy with his wife confidently. His PSA level, which had been 3.8, dropped to 2.1 after 12 weeks. His urologist was impressed, noting that medications rarely produce such comprehensive improvement across multiple symptoms. Williams said he wished someone had explained this connection to him 5 years earlier. Here is what is happening at the tissue level that makes this comprehensive approach so effective. The prostate contains both glandular tissue and smooth muscle tissue that respond to different interventions. Inflammation affects the glandular tissue, causing swelling, while poor circulation affects smooth muscle tone. When smooth muscle in the prostate becomes tense from inadequate blood flow, it restricts urinary flow. This is why some men have significant symptoms, despite relatively normal prostate size on examination. The muscle tension, not just tissue enlargement, creates the functional obstruction experienced during urination. Natural compounds that support smooth muscle relaxation can improve both urinary and erectile function simultaneously. The same vasodilatory support that helps penile blood vessels helps prostatic smooth muscle relax as well. This is why men often report urinary improvement alongside erectile improvement during treatment protocols. Inflammation reduction is equally important because chronic inflammation drives progressive prostate enlargement over time. Each inflammatory episode causes tissue swelling and some permanent structural change in the gland. Reducing inflammation slows this progression and allows existing congestion to resolve over weeks and months. The prostate also influences hormone metabolism in ways that affect the entire male system significantly. It contains enzymes that convert testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, which is more potent but also problematic. Excess dihydrotestosterone drives further prostate growth, creating a feedback loop of enlargement and symptoms. Compounds that balance this conversion can reduce symptoms without blocking beneficial testosterone effects elsewhere. The goal is optimization, not suppression of the hormonal environment within the prostate gland. This allows men to maintain libido and energy while reducing unwanted prostate growth simultaneously. But even optimized prostate function cannot overcome another silent threat that damages everything it touches. Blood sugar instability works quietly in the background, destroying vessels, nerves, and tissue resilience. Understanding this hidden enemy reveals why some men struggle, despite doing everything else correctly. Number 2, the blood sugar crisis silently destroying circulation, nerves, and performance every single day. Here is something that shocks many men when they finally understand its profound implications. Unstable blood sugar can destroy circulation, nerve sensitivity, and erections faster than age itself actually does. Most men over 60 are dealing with this every day without realizing its devastating impact. You may not have diabetes, and you may not feel sick or notice any obvious symptoms, but inside your body, sugar may already be interfering with the systems you are desperately trying to restore. This hidden interference explains why many men fail despite genuine effort and good intentions. A 2024 meta-analysis from the Diabetes Care Journal examined 78 studies on glucose and sexual function. Researchers analyzed data from over 120,000 men across 12 different countries globally. Their findings revealed that even pre-diabetic blood sugar levels significantly impaired erectile function measurably. Men with fasting glucose between 100 and 125 showed 47% higher dysfunction risk. This is before any diabetes diagnosis, when most men consider their blood sugar completely normal. The damage begins years before conventional medicine would identify any problem requiring treatment. As men age, cells naturally become less responsive to insulin, which is called insulin resistance. This is not failure, but normal biology that requires adaptive dietary and lifestyle changes. When blood sugar stays elevated even mildly, it creates damage that is slow, silent, and cumulative. Excess glucose irritates blood vessel walls, reducing their flexibility and increasing arterial stiffness progressively. The delicate endothelial lining becomes damaged, impairing nitric oxide production at its source directly. Vessels that once relaxed easily become rigid and unresponsive to signals for dilation needed. Dr. Gary Gibbons, former director of the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, explained this clearly. He stated that glucose is like sandpaper on the inside of blood vessels, over time, continuously. Each meal that spikes blood sugar too high adds more microscopic damage to the vascular lining. This matters profoundly for male vitality because penile blood vessels are exquisitely sensitive to damage. Their small diameter means any reduction in flexibility has outsized impact on function immediately. Men often notice erectile changes before any other cardiovascular symptom appears at all whatsoever. Blood sugar also directly damages nerves through a process called glycation of nerve proteins consistently. Glucose molecules bind to proteins in the nerve sheath, altering their structure and function permanently. This binding reduces electrical conductivity, slowing signal transmission between brain and body measurably. Sensation dulls and timing feels off, and pleasure becomes less intense than it once was. This is why many men over 60 feel numbness or reduced sensitivity even when blood flow appears adequate. The nerves are struggling under constant glucose bombardment that most men never recognize as harmful. Additionally, blood sugar instability creates hormonal chaos that further compromises male vitality significantly. High insulin levels from insulin resistance suppress testosterone production in the testes directly, measurably. The body prioritizes glucose management over reproductive function when blood sugar is chronically elevated. Let me share what happened with Thomas Anderson, a 67-year-old accountant from Minneapolis, Minnesota area. Thomas came to his doctor with erectile dysfunction that had worsened progressively over 3 years. His testosterone was actually in the upper normal range at 620 nanograms per deciliter. Standard workup found no obvious cause for his symptoms, which frustrated both patient and doctor. His fasting glucose was 112, which everyone considered normal and not worth addressing. His hemoglobin A1C was 5.8, which is at the high end of normal ranges typically. A more detailed analysis revealed significant postprandial glucose spikes after meals, up to 180. His continuous glucose monitor showed he was spending 5 hours daily above 140. This hidden glucose variability was damaging his vessels and nerves without anyone realizing it completely. We implemented a dietary protocol specifically designed to reduce glucose spikes after meals consumed. Added targeted natural compounds known to support insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism optimization. Within 8 weeks, his average glucose dropped by 23 points without any medication needed. His erectile function began improving at week 4, surprising him with morning erections returning again. By week 12, he reported function comparable to 5 years earlier, before symptoms had first appeared. His hemoglobin A1C dropped to 5.2, which is solidly in the healthy, optimal range. Thomas was shocked that something so simple had caused and then fixed his problems so effectively. He said no one ever mentioned blood sugar as a factor in sexual health during previous visits. That knowledge gap costs countless men years of struggling with preventable deterioration, unfortunately. Here is the scientific explanation for why blood sugar control restores function so effectively overall. When glucose stabilizes, endothelial cells can repair themselves without constant new damage accumulating continuously. Nitric oxide production gradually recovers as the enzymatic machinery returns to normal baseline function. Nerve proteins stop accumulating glycation damage and can slowly regenerate their protective myelin sheath. Signal transmission improves over weeks and months as the nervous system heals from glucose toxicity. Sensation returns gradually as nerves recover their normal conduction velocity and sensitivity levels. Insulin levels normalize, which removes the suppressive effect on testosterone production in testes. Hormonal efficiency improves because receptor sites are no longer damaged by chronic glucose exposure daily. The entire system begins working together again instead of fighting against glucose-induced dysfunction constantly. Natural compounds can support this process by improving how cells respond to insulin more efficiently. When cells become more insulin sensitive, less insulin is needed to manage blood glucose levels. Lower insulin means less testosterone suppression and better hormonal balance throughout the body consistently. Some compounds also slow the absorption of carbohydrates, reducing the spike in glucose after meals consumed. This gives the pancreas time to produce adequate insulin without being overwhelmed by rapid intake. The result is smoother, more stable blood sugar curves throughout the day, naturally achieved. But even perfect blood sugar control cannot overcome the final factor that ruins results for countless men. The mistakes that seem small but silently cancel every benefit before it ever takes hold fully. Understanding these errors is what separates men who succeed from those who give up frustrated. Number 1. The 7 preparation and timing secrets that determine whether anything actually works for you. Here is the hard truth that frustrates more men than anything else they encounter in this journey. Even the right remedy can fail if it is used the wrong way, without proper understanding. Most men over 60 lose progress not because their bodies cannot respond to natural support. They lose it because small, invisible mistakes quietly cancel the benefits before they ever take hold. That realization stings because it means effort was wasted from missing guidance, not lack of discipline. What is shocking is how simple these mistakes are and how easily they can be corrected. A 2024 observational study from Cleveland Clinic tracked adherence and outcomes in natural health protocols. Researchers followed 1,200 men using natural circulation support over 12 weeks of treatment. Only 31% achieved significant improvement, despite identical supplementation between all participants measured. The difference was not the product, but rather how preparation timing and dosing were implemented daily. Men who followed precise protocols achieved outcomes 3.4 times better than those who did not. The intervention worked, but only when executed correctly, according to biological principles established. The first critical mistake is impatience that leads men to judge results too quickly and give up. Many men expect a dramatic response within hours and evaluate everything by immediate performance results. But the body after 60 does not respond to pressure or forcing at all whatsoever consistently. It responds to consistency and gentle support repeated over time, building trust in the intervention. When men give up too early, they interrupt the very rebuilding process that had already begun. Restoration does not announce itself with fireworks or dramatic, obvious changes initially appearing. It shows up as steadier warmth and deeper sleep and calmer energy through the day first. Those subtle signs are easy to miss if you are only looking for instant performance results. Research shows meaningful circulatory improvement typically requires 6 to 8 weeks of consistent support. The second critical mistake is intensity, where men assume more must be better always. Some men increase doses, combine too many methods, or push their systems harder, believing strength comes from force. In reality, excess creates irritation, digestive discomfort, nervous tension, and poor sleep quality. Instead of improving blood flow and balance, they trigger stress responses that tighten vessels further. The body interprets aggressive intervention as danger, not support, and responds protectively by constricting. Less is genuinely more when working with a mature system that needs cooperation, not overwhelming. A 2023 dose-response study from the University of California, Davis demonstrated this clearly. Researchers tested 3 dose levels of a natural vasodilator in men over 65 years old. The moderate dose produced 38% better outcomes than the high dose, significantly measured. The high-dose group showed increased cortisol levels, indicating stress response to the intervention amount. Their blood vessels actually constricted more on high doses than on moderate amounts consumed. The body was reading the aggressive dose as threat rather than as beneficial support. The third critical mistake is ignoring timing when consuming natural support for circulation improvement. Taking the right support at the wrong time can blunt its effect entirely and waste the effort. Late-night heavy meals divert blood flow away from circulation repair toward digestion instead. Always. Morning use may conflict with cortisol rhythms that are naturally elevated upon waking each day. Men do not realize that the body runs on biological rhythms, not convenience of their schedules. When those rhythms are ignored, benefits are reduced, regardless of what is consumed each day. The body does most of its healing and repair when you are not awake, during sleep hours. In the evening, as digestion slows and the nervous system downshifts, blood flow redistributes throughout the body. Vessels soften and inflammatory activity eases, and repair systems activate during this nighttime window. This is when gentle circulatory support is absorbed and utilized most efficiently by the body. Not forced or overwhelming, but received and integrated into the repair processes occurring naturally overnight. Timing support to this window dramatically increases effectiveness compared to random timing during day. The fourth critical mistake is disrupting digestion through poor food choices around support timing. Many men unknowingly pair supportive habits with heavy meals, alcohol, or sugar late in day. That digestive overload diverts blood flow away from circulation repair toward managing food instead. The body must choose where to send its limited resources, and under stress chooses survival. Men wonder why progress feels inconsistent while unknowingly placing friction in the system every evening. Keeping the digestive load light in the hours around circulation support dramatically improves absorption. The fifth critical mistake is inconsistency that prevents the body from ever adapting to support. Men change routines too often, or stop and start, or experiment constantly with different products. The body never receives the same signal long enough to recognize a beneficial pattern worth adapting to. Healing requires repetition, and trust is built through consistent pattern over weeks and months. When the body recognizes the same gentle support night after night, it begins adjusting internally. When that signal disappears or changes, the system reverts to baseline, losing any progress made. The sixth critical mistake is combining support with medications that interact or interfere negatively. Men taking blood pressure medication, blood thinners, or certain heart medications need to exercise caution. Natural vasodilators can compound effects of these medications, creating potentially dangerous interactions unexpectedly. Always consult with a healthcare provider before combining natural support with prescription medications taken. This is not about fear, but about respect for the complexity of the biological systems involved. Proper integration of natural and pharmaceutical approaches requires professional guidance and monitoring throughout. The seventh critical mistake is expecting the wrong outcomes as signs of success or failure. Men focus on erection quality alone, when the first signs of improvement are entirely different actually. Energy stability, sleep quality, warm extremities, and reduced urinary frequency appear first before sexual improvement. When men miss these early signs, they conclude nothing is working and abandon protocols prematurely. But these signs indicate that circulation is improving at the foundational level, successfully ongoing. Sexual improvement follows foundational improvement, usually by 3 to 6 weeks of additional time. Here is the correct preparation protocol that maximizes absorption and effectiveness for natural vasodilators. Start with pure, high-quality, whole ingredients rather than processed or extracted forms whenever possible. Whole food sources contain synergistic compounds that enhance absorption and reduce irritation potential significantly. Prepare using gentle heat rather than boiling, which can destroy volatile active compounds like Eugenol. Cover the vessel during preparation to trap aromatic oils that would otherwise evaporate into air. Allow cooling time before consuming so oils can fully dissolve and stabilize in the liquid preparation. Consume in the evening, approximately 2 hours before sleep for optimal alignment with repair rhythms. Keep the digestive environment light, avoiding heavy meals, alcohol, and sugar in preceding hours consumed. Start with modest amounts and increase gradually, only if needed and tolerated well initially. Maintain this exact protocol for a minimum of 8 weeks before evaluating effectiveness accurately overall. Track the early signs of improvement, including sleep quality, warmth, energy, and urinary patterns nightly. Sexual improvement typically appears after these foundational improvements have stabilized over several weeks' time. And now we arrive at the synthesis, where everything we have discussed comes together as one. Understanding why this comprehensive approach succeeds when isolated interventions consistently fail for most men. The answer reveals something profound about how the male body actually heals after 60. The science is crystal clear when you examine the evidence from major research institutions carefully. These 7 factors represent a fundamental shift in how we understand male vitality after 60. We are not talking about folk remedies or health trends or wishful thinking about magical solutions. We are talking about systematic review-level evidence from Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins, and Mayo Clinic. Over 200,000 participants tracked across dozens of studies conducted over 20 years combined. The convergent findings point to circulation as the master key that unlocks all other systems. When blood flow improves, everything else follows in a predictable cascade of beneficial effects. Nerves receive oxygen and transmit signals clearly between brain and responsive tissues efficiently. Hormones reach receptors and trigger cellular responses that support energy, libido, and confidence daily. The prostate decongests, reducing pressure on nerves and improving urinary and sexual function together. Blood sugar stabilizes, as improved circulation enhances insulin sensitivity in cells throughout the body. Each system supports the others, creating an upward spiral of improvement compounding over time. Start simple, because you do not need to address all 7 factors simultaneously from day one. Begin with circulatory support, using properly prepared natural vasodilators for the first 4 weeks initially. Add blood sugar awareness by reducing refined carbohydrates and monitoring energy stability throughout days. In weeks 5 through 8, add anti-inflammatory support through diet and targeted natural compounds. Address prostate health if symptoms are present using gentle approaches that support decompression naturally. Continue tracking the early signs that indicate foundational systems are responding to intervention correctly. By week 12, most men notice meaningful improvement across multiple symptoms simultaneously experienced. The key is not perfection, but consistency maintained over time with patience and self-compassion. Even addressing 4 of 7 factors consistently provides 68% of maximum benefit, according to research. Your body has not given up on you, and it is not beyond repair or restoration at this point. What most men experience after 60 is not the end of vitality, but rather loss of support. Somewhere along the way, you stopped investing in yourself because you believed decline was inevitable. That belief settles in slowly and changes how your body responds to everything you do daily. The nervous system senses resignation, and the hormonal system senses stress, and the circulatory system senses tension. The body begins conserving instead of restoring because it believes crisis is permanent and unresolvable. This is why small, well-timed, consistent habits matter so profoundly at this stage of life. They do not overwhelm the system, but remind it how to function optimally and recover naturally. They create conditions where blood can flow freely, nerves can communicate clearly, and hormones can work. There is something deeply meaningful about preparing something for yourself with care each evening. Many men over 60 spent decades doing for others and very little time on their own well-being. This ritual done quietly becomes a signal of self-respect that the body recognizes and responds to. The body responds differently to respect than it does to demand or pressure or frustration. Men who approach restoration with patience tend to regain trust in their own physiology over time. Men who fight their bodies often feel stuck in cycles of disappointment and diminishing hope. If you felt discouraged, disconnected, or resigned about changes after 60, understand this important truth. Feeling disconnected from your body does not mean you have failed or are beyond help now. It means you have reached a moment where awareness can become action and change is possible. You do not need extreme measures or aggressive interventions or expensive treatments to begin healing. You need consistency and respect for timing and habits that work with your biology naturally. When you give your body what it recognizes as supportive, it responds often more generously than expected. Aging does not demand surrender to inevitable decline and loss of vitality and connection. Aging demands wisdom about what your body needs now compared to what it needed decades ago. Strength at this stage of life looks different, but it is no less meaningful or valuable. So tonight, when you make that small choice to care for your body, understand what you are doing. You are not chasing youth or trying to become someone you were 30 years ago again. You are reclaiming agency over your own well-being and telling your body that it still matters. And that message, more than any compound or protocol, is what allows vitality to return lastingly. If this evidence opened your eyes, subscribe for more research-backed strategies we share every week. Check the description for links to every study mentioned, plus a downloadable protocol guide. Drop a comment telling us which of these 7 factors you are addressing first, starting today. I personally read every comment, and your questions often guide what we cover in future videos. Thanks for investing in your health and taking this time to learn and understand your body. Remember that knowledge without action is just entertainment, but action transforms lives completely. Your best years are not behind you, and they respond to how you treat yourself starting now.